Hey, last week in episode 14, I talked to my good friend Kevin McDonald. He talked to us about how important it is to get important stories on the table. If you haven't had a chance to listen to that episode, I invite you to do so now, but not before you listen to this episode with Goddess Carol. Welcome to Diversity Dish, where we're dishing on everything diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice related. My name is Sedruola Maruska, and we're bridging the gap between what needs to be said and what needs to be heard. Those individual experiences that are often ignored or simply dismissed. Sometimes I'm dining alone, sometimes I'm dining with friends, and sometimes I'm dining a la carte. No matter how I'm dining, it promises to be delicious. Let's dig in. Goddess, They, Them, Theirs is the proud Momo of Sunseedscommunity, a platform for the practice of collective healing. Creating Goddess's tools of liberation took a whole community of support, and they hope their village's stories can resonate with others. They graduated from the Healing Arts Institute of Massage in October of 2018 and continue to explore therapeutic and spiritual practices. You can usually find them in the pagan section of the bookstore, sitting in the back of a concert, caressing crystals at your local metaphysical shop, or binge watching old sci-fi movies while cooking. Hey, Goddess, it is so good to have you here. Thank you for agreeing to do this with me.
Yes, thank you. I'm honored.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure, my pleasure. I was so glad to get your request because I think you came through my request form, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and then I read it. I was like, yes, of course. Why not? So before we get into the meat and potatoes, the nitty gritty, as I like to say, let's talk a little bit about Goddess. And first thing, what are you passionate about right now?
Ooh, oh, that's a big question. Right now, I'm actually getting back into cooking. I was going, yeah, and so I'm really passionate about that and dancing in the kitchen and like rubbing on my
I love
belly
it.
and loving my body. That feels really good right now.
Love it.
Yeah, and then also feel right now that this is I'm coming into wonderful opportunities to do repair work within my communities,
Mm-hmm.
and learning more about how to hold space when there's ruptures, when there's hurt, and when people need our support, and
Mm-hmm.
when we need other people's support. So learning how to facilitate that and also utilize it in a day-to-day basis really is calling to me right now.
I love it.
Yeah.
And especially because, this is diversity dish and you're like talking about cooking. I love it. So we will get to that again later.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, but so one of the things that I would love to ask you is I know that your gender pronouns are they, them, and their.
Mhm.
And I've had conversations with people who are struggling with that. And I wonder if you wouldn't mind kind of bringing to light or kind of helping us understand they, them, and their
Mhm.
pronouns as they relate to people.
Yes. So I would like to preface it with that people's answers might be different based on the person because it's very much an
Yes.
individual experience.
Yes.
For my own experience, I like to think of my gender as like fluctuating.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really set as like I feel very feminine and
Mm-hmm.
whatever that can mean.
Mm-hmm.
Femininity and masculinity mean different things to different people. They're actually
Mm-hmm.
really concepts which we have formulated to fit our society, to kind of organize our societies. And if you look at different cultures, there are other genders and other cultures and other
Mm-hmm.
ways of expressing femininity and masculinity. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, in certain countries, in Africa, you'll see men holding hands, and that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to do specifically with a gender or even a sexuality. It's a form of
Mm-hmm.
affection. So there's nuances. But going back, I won't digress.
It's okay.
Going back to my own gender, yes, it fluctuates. There's days where I feel like a very masculine energy, and then days where I feel very feminine, and days where I feel neither, and that feels very right too. So they, them, there felt really fitting for me to start using, because to say she, her, or he, him, his didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel true to myself.
So it's kind of an integration of everything that you feel, so that whenever you're feeling differently, they, them, there still fits, because maybe today you're feeling a little bit more femme and tomorrow you're feeling a little bit more masculine, but whatever the day, they, them, there fits for that for you. Is that kind of what I hear you saying?
Yes, correct. And your gender doesn't have anything to do with your like genetic makeup or
Mm-hmm.
your physical parts. So
Mm-hmm.
just because you might have one sexual or like reproductive system
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that your gender has to coincide with that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's where people get confused. Like I've had
Mm-hmm.
the question of like, well, what does like that part of your body tell you
Right,
you are?
right.
And that's not the right question. um,
Right,
that's yeah,
right.
definitely. And also that same token, your gender doesn't have anything to do with your sexual expression. So there's so many beautiful layers in
Yeah.
which we are able to express ourselves and to
Mm-hmm.
exist on. And
Mm-hmm.
the more in which we allow ourselves to feel into those nuances, I feel like the more we can feel very connected to our bodies and
Mm-hmm.
to our true selves, and not have to fit within these like very boxed in definitions of what it means to be a human.
Right. I love it. Absolutely. But thank you so much for explaining that, because I've had conversations with people and I'm like, well, some people don't feel quite hers, and some don't feel him, his. And so they, them, there feels right. So
Hmm.
that's what we use. I mean, you know, I feel comfortable with she, her, hers.
Hmm.
But that's not to say that there aren't days where I kind of maybe feel like, maybe I should be a him, you know? Just, I mean, because if we keep it open and we keep it fluid and, we're honest, and we maybe sometimes we do feel that way, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? So thank you. I appreciate that. Very good elaboration on that subject. Girl, you know.
Yes, yeah, the struggle, yeah.
Oh, the struggle is real. It's
Hmm.
real. So tell us about your community.
Hmm. So do you mean Sunseed community, or do you mean
Yes,
like just my community?
no, no, no. I'm sorry. And you're right. I should be more specific. Yes. Tell us about your Sunseed community.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. um, so I started, or I birthed Sunseed Community in October of 2018, right after graduating from massage school.
Okay.
Yeah. So we are fairly new, and I can actually say we now because there's more than just me and Sunseed Community. Um,
Nice. Congratulations. That's
think,
growth.
think it is good. It feels so great. It helps me out a lot.
That's awesome.
But Sunseed Community is a practice in community healing.
Mm-hmm.
So we work with people. For instance, I do body and energy work. So I
Mm-hmm.
work with people on a one-on-one level to reconnect to their bodies, to practice
Mm-hmm.
embodiment, and to work through. I don't know if people have read the book like The Body Keeps the Score, or know about how we hold trauma in like the physical
Mm.
tissue of our body. But those
Mm-hmm.
are the things that I work on in my one-on-one sessions with people through body and energy work. And
Mm-hmm.
And then we have workshops that we're creating. So I just finished a series called The Inner Wisdom Keeper. And that is working through like generational ancestral trauma, but then also applying it on a community level. So, and that one was particularly for white bodied people. So, how are white bodied people addressing their internal racism, queer phobia, transphobia, all of the things that like whiteness operates from in order to persist? How are they unpacking that through ancestral narratives? And then how are they living into that and making it a practice within their day-to-day lives to start to like, root that out and create and grow something new? So creating workshops like that. I'm working on a polyamory workshop, decolonizing polyamory workshop with other queer Black folks. And then consulting. I'm also starting the path into consulting for other organizations.
What type of organizations?
White-led organizations, kind of like, diversity and equity and inclusion training. I would love to change up that language, but working with them on
we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to.
Yes.
But working with them.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that then, because I consider myself a diversity consultant. I'm not always comfortable with that title. And yet I don't know what I could use to relay the same message of inclusion. So sometimes I leave off diversity and I just say equity and inclusion, right? In what I do. But let's talk about that. Like, what is it that you... Go ahead, girl. Tell us.
No.
Please.
I don't have like a soapbox or anything. These are more like just questions. And so I'm glad to be in conversation with a fellow Black person about this.
Yes.
I feel like the need for diversity, equity, and inclusion is very much based upon whiteness as well, upon the idea that like we have created this like very homogenous default idea of what it means to be in society. So when we think about so when we who is it, Sonia Renee Taylor, I think that's her last name, talks about this in her book My Body Is Not an Apology, about default bodies and how like when we think about like the status quo of what the ideal person, it's usually kind of like a white cisgender heterosexual able-bodied person. And so when the need for diversity and inclusion is to realize, oh, wait, there are other people operating in this world that do not fit that norm. And so it's a need that like really is based off of the need for us, again, to like do the work of unpacking our anti-Blackness, ableism, all of those things. But I feel like there's a way that we can say it to kind of call in more than just the need for, oh, I've pushed you all the way out here, let me like bring you into my world, and more of like, how do we see each other for who we are and not have to like even operate within this world that we deemed was the norm. So I mean, you know what I mean? Like, what do you think? What do you think? Tell me something.
Okay, you know. I see, as you're speaking, I see exactly what you're saying. I see it. It's saying pretty much that this table is yours. You have seats at this table. Let's create some seats for other people.
Yes, that's it.
Right? Let's create some seats for other people. This is not their table. This is your table. But let's create some seats for other people and see how that goes.
Yes.
That is exactly not what we want.
Can I use that? That is exactly not.
That's not it. How about there is a table here? There are people in this room. Everyone can have a seat at this table. Not there are people already sitting at this table, like it's their table. Like there's no possessive within this, is what I'm seeing. There's no possessive here in that this table belongs to white bodies. There is a table. Let's say the table is the business. Those who are sitting at that table are those who have shown themselves to be qualified to sit at that table, which means they can be anybody, any human body. Yeah, I feel that very strongly. That it is not, it is, we don't want to, it's almost like thinking of it as, in some ways, some people think of it as an invasion. We're not trying to invade, because if we were invading, that would mean that we didn't belong, right? An invader, a disease, zombie apocalypse, ants invading your picnic. They are not welcome, right? But they invade. That's not what we're doing. That's not the conversation. The conversation is everyone is here and everyone is invited to this cookout. Everyone is invited to be part of this company. And everyone knows that the other person has the credentials to be at this table if they are at this table. Because there's nothing worse than being at the table and people questioning why you're at the table. Right? So that's a whole other thing to unpack over there. So we're just gonna leave that over there. But right? So there are layers to this, which is why for me as a consultant, my goal is to always go in and have conversations. I want to talk to you about what actually makes you feel like this is your table, which is not the words I would use, but what makes you feel that this is your table and that anyone other than you, quote unquote, is a guest or is not meant to be at that table. And it's kind of the conversations you go in, you have these conversations, and then you kind of change the mindset. Just like, what you said, you change mindset, you unpack certain things so that people can then go, never thought of it like that before. Because we're not socialized to think of it that way. So I would totally understand why you would think, because like you said, we're socialized to think that this table belongs to someone and we're just begging to be there. And it's not. Ooh.
Yes. There's, yep.
So you stated that you graduated from massage school. Did you do Reiki as well? Have you taken? Okay.
No, I haven't taken Reiki. I would love to. I'm actually looking to do my Reiki training with a black-bodied individual. Just massage.
Okay, but that's good. So what is your vision for the Sunseed community? Like, what is the vision that you see? And then we're going to kind of switch things up. But what is the vision that you see for Sunseed community?
Yes, absolutely. So when I first thought about Sunseed community, it was going to be buying land and creating these different centers on the land for different modalities of healing. So whether that be like kind of more Western therapy, gender affirming surgery, yoga, different ways in which we can all be practicing the healing that we need. And then like in the middle would be this wonderful big kitchen with a garden outside and we could all just come and cook. That's like the dream. That's like the biggest dream.
That is a beautiful. I love it. Oh, I see it.
When it
Oh,
happens, you're coming. You can come.
I'm coming.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. You know,
Oh
bring your
my
to-go
goodness.
bag so you can bring
Yes.
some food home. You know, at the
What?
cookout. But I found that when I had that dream, it was the only dream I could see, and it was so overwhelming that I wasn't able to actually start. So I
Yes.
had to think smaller, and I had
Mm-hmm.
to come down to, okay, within this dream, what is the overall need? Like, what does your heart need from Sunseed, and what do you feel
Mm-hmm.
that others can get from Sunseed too? And it really came down to that practice in community healing. Like, it's a
Mm-hmm.
community practice in healing. So I started off smaller, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
how about the conversations that I'm always having with loved ones? These beautiful
Mm.
conversations that are inspiring me and inspiring my work, my practice, just the way I live my life. And so I started
Mm-hmm.
a podcast, and then that
Mm.
podcast started to grow. And I was like, okay, so now how am I living into that? So
Mm-hmm.
it's emergent, and it keeps growing. And I like that, because I can, work up to, owning that
Mm-hmm.
land and sharing that land, and in like baby steps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. That is so beautiful. And yes, I agree. It's like instead of looking at the whole staircase, let's just look at the stair right here and what needs to happen here, and then kind of go from there to the next
Yes.
one. Before you know it, you will be up there. You'll be like, you'll have so many stories to tell on the way about how
Yes.
you got there.
Yes.
So, so that brings me to my next question. What are some of the obstacles that you have been finding
Mm,
along your way as you work toward this big, beautiful dream of yours?
yeah. So on a logistical level, I would say the biggest thing is kind of figuring out what feels right to legally go into. Like, do I want Sunseed Community to be a business? Does that
Mm-hmm.
feel like it represents and will allow Sunseed Community to grow in the ways that I intention for it to grow? Do I want it to be
Mm.
a nonprofit? Coming from a nonprofit background, and
Mm-hmm.
education, does that feel right? Like, what are some of the things that I might have to give up in order to become a nonprofit? There's so many different options. So that's been a big question. And so, going to people who have already done these different processes and asking for advice, getting consulting feels really important. Also, navigating finances, that's also
Mm.
big, making sure that everything is like well organized so that everything can kind of have a trail back to it. I hate to
Mm-hmm.
say this, but like, as a black bodied person, like, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of what you do is going to be scrutinized and questioned,
Mm.
especially when you're asking for
Mm.
funding.
Yes.
So being able to have proof of things, but how do I do it in a way where I'm not questioning my own value and my own
Right.
worth? Because I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of the times we also question our own value and worth within those systems,
Mm-hmm.
um, because it's being asked of us to question that.
Mm-hmm.
And then on like a personal community level, I would say again, like, how to navigate like repair work. So like, when there's disagreements with me
Mm-hmm.
and someone I'm collaborating with, how to
Mm-hmm.
handle that, how
Mm-hmm.
to ensure that the organizations I'm working with, like, our ideas kind of coincide, and
Mm-hmm.
that the labor isn't being like placed on all the femme people, or all
Mm.
the black people, or all the BIPOC
Mm.
people. So navigating that also feels like really important at this time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
You're learning a lot, huh? I'm
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
That's good. It's all preparation work for that big dream. It's
Mhm.
all preparation work for that big dream. So, what is something that has happened to you along the way? So, before I get into that question, I want to ask you a personal question. How old were you when you realized that your pronouns were they, them, there?
Oh, now I have to remember how old I am now. So, so I would say it was around 24. 24.
24. Okay. Because I would imagine that coming to that sort of realization, that personal realization, and stepping out into saying that I feel most comfortable with they, them, there would bring its own kind of pushback or confusion, of course, or stories, I'm sure. So the question I have is, what is something that has happened to you along the way, along your life path, that people would find unbelievable? Something that, and you know, as a Black-bodied person, just as I am, there are times when things happen and we say this happened and people go, mm-mm, mm-mm. You're overreacting, or you got
the
it wrong.
gaslighting.
Yes, that. So,
Yeah.
what is something that has happened along your path, along that line, along your path, which I'm sure you have a few stories, but that, and what would you suggest would be the solution or the suggested solution to that situation?
I'm trying to think of one that feels, yeah. There's there's so many.
I know. I know.
Okay. So the one that comes to mind, I feel like it fits in with what we're talking about. So because of my spirituality, I circle a lot of people who have different like modalities of practice within that. So they might be Buddhist, they might be pagan in some sort of way, just different expressions of spirituality outside of like Christianity
Yep.
or the Islamic practice. And in one circle in which I was being taught in, I expressed that because I was non-binary, I wanted to find a way to express that to clients, because certain clients come to me because they assume that I am a woman and they only want to be worked on by women. And so I was trying to find a way to navigate that, and the instructor of this group, and it was meant to hold space for all the like different healers in the group, had me stand up, and I forgot what kind of like repeat after him. This white cis hetero male had me repeat after him, and like basically what he was telling me to do was affirm that I believed in myself, and like that I knew myself. And it was so humiliating, because what he was doing was like telling me that like, oh, your issue is not with kind of like creating the boundary and like and like expressing yourself. Your issue is you don't have enough confidence to basically like just be comfortable with being a woman.
Right.
It was so humiliating, and I'm looking around, and I'm the only Black person in the room as well.
Oh gosh.
Looking around at all these other people that I've had very intimate moments with, like basically like about to cry, like begging them, like, can someone please help me? And no one came to my aid. And I was just like, I just gave up. I was like, you know what? Okay. And I sat back down. And like in that moment, I could tell that like the instructor also felt uncomfortable with what happened. Like he could tell he messed up, but he was too prideful to be like, wait, maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're saying.
Yes.
And so it just led to this really big disjointedness. And it's so hard to explain situations like that to other people, because, and it goes back to what we were talking about before with like being viewed as invaders. Like we need to go deeper than like why you need to bring people to the table, and like why do you view these people as invaders in the first place? Why do you feel the need to define who I am and not listen to how I define myself?
Exactly.
There's so many layers to it, and so it's hard to explain this because you have what's happening, and it's very like insidious how the harm happens, because it's it's so deep, and like on an energetic level, it starts to eat at you. And so when I was just sharing that story, I was like, it's really hard to explain what happened, but it was deeply humiliating, and like it saddened me, but it also affirmed that I knew what I was talking about, and I was just in the wrong circle to be talking about it. So.
Yes. Wow. Yes. When you think of the people in the room, you said that you think that the instructor kind of felt discomfort. Do you think any of the other people felt discomfort? Do you think any of the other people realized what was happening?
Yeah, I don't think that all of them knew like the extent to the harm that I was feeling, but they definitely felt the discomfort. They knew that like harm was being done in some way. I don't think they knew exactly how, but I could tell on their faces this look of despair. And like when we go into, so when we feel unsafe, we go into flight, freeze,
Fight or flight.
Yep, exactly. All of those, yes. And so, so I could tell on their face that they were going through that too, and they were very like frozen.
Right. It's very interesting. It's really interesting to me because I often say that there are things as Black bodies, Black people, that we're going to notice that white people will not notice, simply because they haven't been socialized to see certain things. And then maybe sometimes they will see something, but they've also been socialized not to talk about certain things. Yes. And so they stay in this place of, okay, that was uncomfortable. Do I say something? Do I not say something? Then the time passes, and then it's like, well, oh well, I didn't really say anything, maybe, and kind of brush it off. Whereas the damage has already been done to the Black body or the brown body, and that insidiousness, as you said, has already been placed, right?
Yes.
And I feel like it's so important for people to, there's a thing that I hear a lot, and it comes mostly from white people, white bodies, white coaches and things of that nature. And it's this idea of a uterine lottery. Have you ever heard this thing?
No.
So it's often brought up when, coaches are talking about, you can do this, and it's based really on meritocracy, and it's based really on pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. Everybody can do this. We can all do this. Everyone has the same opportunities. And then they come in with, it doesn't matter who you are, what you look like. It says, I'm a white whatever, but the uterine lottery, it just so happens that, we all fell in differently with the uterine lottery. And so we get kind of what we get, but that should not determine how far we can go. To a certain extent, I understand. One of the problems I have with that is, in any lottery, there are winners, or a winner, and losers. And my question is, when we're talking about this uterine lottery, who's winning here? And how does that even relate to me as a Black body, right? That they want to talk to all people, but they say these things that we go, what? Do you even understand where I'm coming from? And that sort of thing, right? And I kind of feel that story that you just told is kind of along those lines. It's like, do you even understand what I'm saying to you right now?
Yeah.
Or do you even understand how this affects me right now? You have just taken and run with what you think is the deal without really listening and hearing what I'm saying is the deal, right? So it's so interesting to me. Whenever I hear that, I always have this reaction, and I've examined myself to see if it's just a knee-jerk reaction or if it's really one of those gut things that is just bothering me and I just can't verbalize why it's bothering me. But because I've been in this body all my life, I know that there's something there that's just not sitting right with me, right? So if we go back to that situation, how do you think, like, what would be your suggested solution to that? Like, what are the ways that the instructor could have been more sensitive to and done something differently in that situation for you?
I'm going to answer that question like in conjunction with what you all just said, because it resonated so much. First, you were talking about how, like, we as Black people, like, some people just don't understand where we're coming from, and so they try to like skirt around what they feel might be happening, and like ignore it. And Resmaa Menakem talks a lot about white stamina and how white-bodied people have not built up the stamina to hold space for these very tough conversations around, race. And so I even ask myself, like, what have I not built up the stamina to talk about? And how am I, practicing, building that up? How am I, gaining muscle memory with that? And so when it came to that particular situation, I think if I was that instructor, like you said, I wouldn't have assumed anything. I wouldn't have assumed that this person who was coming to me and the rest of the people in the group for support and advice, that I knew their story and I knew what ailed them, if it was even an ailment. I had a feeling that there might have been some of that in there, of like dysphoria of gender, almost like he was trying to heal this confusion within me, and it did need healing, and also that wasn't what was in the room at that time. That wasn't. So I think that if he would have removed and maybe been a little bit more vulnerable with the dynamic of like him being the instructor, him being the white cis hetero male in this conversation, and realizing that like this is a chance for me to feel into understanding where this person is coming from, and understanding that maybe I won't fully understand, but I can ask questions around it, and maybe we can work together on a solution, instead of assuming just so much and then isolating me. Like, he had me alone stand up to do this like weird affirmation practice that was absolutely horrendous. It's like like being in church and like the person be like, "You're getting saved today. You don't have a choice. You're getting saved. Tell me all your sins, and then just throwing the holy water on me." I don't know how to get saved, but like, I don't need that. I didn't come for that. I did not come for that. So I think that would be really key. And even if so let's say that didn't happen, like it stayed the same situation. Later on, I think it would have been wonderful for him to circle back to me, maybe one-on-one. I think if I was me now, I would have gone to him, but I shouldn't have to do that labor. It is not on me. But for my own peace of mind, I would have been like, listen.
Let me help you out.
Yes, exactly.
It's clearly you need a little help.
Like, I just spit some truth at you real quick. But he could have come back and been like, I noticed that what I said didn't really end the way I thought it was going to. We talk about it, and like also apologize, like understand why you're apologizing. I don't like fake apologies.
Right. Yes.
So that could have been some of the solutions.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think that you're right with all of that. There could have been a very enlightening conversation after that, after the fact, had he, because you said that you think that he noticed that there was a problem. So if he noticed, then it would have been nice had he come and said, I noticed it just I'm not sure what happened there, but I felt uncomfortable and I feel that you felt uncomfortable. Can you tell me why? Or because then it could have opened up a better conversation about what you were talking about. It
Yes.
could have opened up the opportunity for him to learn more about you versus assuming about you because of the question that you asked or the statement that you made of wanting what your desire was. I understand that desire, right? That desire to have people understand that if they're assuming that you're a woman and that might not be who shows up the day that they decide that they want to work with you.
Mm-hmm.
It might be more of your masculine self that shows up. It might be more of your neutral self that shows up. So making that clear to them that simply what they need is to have you as a human, a person doing this work, with them, regardless of their preconceived gender roles or ideas. That's what's important.
Mm-hmm.
He might have learned something. Too bad for him.
Yep. Too bad. Too bad. That's exactly what I felt. I was like, oh,
Too bad for
moving
him.
on. Moving on.
I don't know. Right? Oh, okay. Yes. So, you
Yeah.
know, yes. See, this is why I have these conversations,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel that so many times there are so many things, because I know even in my little sheltered life, there's so many things that have happened that are not reportable. Who are you gonna go tell? Who's gonna listen? Who's gonna care, right? But these things, these little things, are the little things that get under,
Yes. It's
and
yeah,
like,
it's beneath the skin. It's so beneath the
yes,
skin. And you're right. Who are you going to tell? Like, how do you explain these microaggressions that you go through on a day to day basis? And so we start to question if it's us that's wrong.
yes, yes.
And that's a dangerous place to be in.
That's not a good place
Yeah.
to be, because we need to be able to believe ourselves. We need to
Yes.
be able to believe ourselves. We need to be able to go, you know what? Which is why I constantly say, look, I've been in this body for 52 years. 52 years. That means I there are certain things that I know and I see and I perceive. And when I perceive it and I am not able to articulate it to you, that does not mean it did not happen and it did not cause me harm.
Mm-hmm.
It just simply means that you haven't been in this body for the same amount. You had never been in this body. It means that you need to take, like you said, create space to listen.
Yeah.
So when someone is not creating space at all, those are the people you just don't even bother with, because they're not even they're not even they're not even at the starting line.
You're not gonna resonate. There's not gonna be a place of resonance. If you do resonate, it's gonna be a lot of at a cost of labor, a lot of your labor.
Your labor.
Yep, and are you wanting to do that labor?
Are you ready to drain yourself that much? Because that's what's going to happen. You're going to
Yeah.
drain yourself.
Mm.
So absolutely no. So just
Again, okay. Absolutely not.
No. So, goddess, if we're sitting here, let's say it's like 3 years down the line, no more pandemic. We figured that out. We're all, out and about. We can hug each other again, have that human connection again, and all of those things. And we're sitting and we're celebrating, like we are really like so excited about something that has taken place. What has taken place as far as you are concerned?
I just picture you and I like we're both traveling and just happen to be meeting like in the same
Yes.
city because we were both doing our consulting thing and we just had some time and we're like, oh, you gonna be at this? Hey, let's get some dinner. That's how I feel is gonna happen.
Yes.
Let's manifest that.
Yes.
And I feel, for me, I think I would be celebrating. Oh, finally getting some big investors to come and support Sunseed. That feels so good and so right.
Yes.
And also being able to make Sunseed my full time commitment for work. And not just like this side hustle that's a big dream as well. Yeah, I feel good with those things. I feel like those are a lot good things to
I
wish
like
for.
that.
Yeah, just spreading the word of Sunseed, going to different places and having beautiful conversations like this one. What would you celebrate?
Yes.
I want to hear what would we celebrate for you? What would we cheers into?
Man, for me, I think 3 years down the line, I would celebrate if my podcast was reaching such a large audience that people were starting to have the same conversations themselves, that it would resonate so much that people would be having the same conversations themselves. So they would say, hey, did you hear that conversation? What do you think about that? Did you hear that conversation Sadie had with Goddess? And they were talking about how, white people aren't holding space. What do you think about that? I think that I would really celebrate that because it would bring on more conversation and it would help people to be more introspective, hopefully. That's the hope, and go, I never thought of it that way. Now that I am thinking of it that way, I'm a manager in this office. What can I do differently? I'm a CEO. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business person right now. What can I do differently so that some of these things don't happen, or I am able to address some of these things? What is it that I need to learn? How do I need to grow? That would be cake. Cake.
Yes.
So we'll be celebrating that together.
Yes, and I feel like that's already going to start happening just by you starting the podcast and already having these conversations. You're planting those seeds, and like it's going to grow and grow and grow. So these conversations are going to already be happening, and then they'll just get to an even bigger scale 3 years down the line.
Yes. And that would be, like I said, that would be cake.
Yes.
So when you're gone, well, before I get to that question, is there anything that you would have liked me to have asked you and I didn't, but that you would like to answer at this moment?
I would say, like, just resource-wise, again, people that inspire me are Rev Angel Kyoto Williams of Radical Dharma, Lama Rod also of Radical Dharma, Resma Menakem. There are people out there who are just like you, Sadie. There are people out having these conversations and have wonderful resources. We need to we need to be going to them, and we also need to be paying them, especially white body people. You need to be paying black bodied people for this work and stop investing in white bodied people for this work.
Yes. Say it again, girl. I'm sorry. Say it again.
It's okay. No, I get it. I do it too. I'm like, yes, girl, any kind of gender. I do. But and I need to get better, like,
it's
not
so true.
But,
yes, we're all learning. We're all learning.
Exactly.
But I am aware, so I'm hoping that awareness comes through.
Thank you. But yes, seriously, we need to start paying Black people for this labor.
All right. Well, what's something you hope people will remember about you when you transverse this plane?
Yes. Sunseed Community is my legacy. Like that is a part of my legacy. So I hope
Mm-hmm.
that it carries on and there's new reiterations of it that dream bigger than even what I can dream for it after I, leave
Mm-hmm.
this realm in this
Mm-hmm.
lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And also, honestly, I have a big dream of having a child of my own. So
Mm.
that is something I hope to leave here on this earth too, is a
Mm-hmm.
little one. May that
Oh,
manifest. So yeah.
may that manifest.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So we were talking about your kitchen in the middle and your garden and all of that stuff.
Yes.
And so, what is your favorite dish? What will you be cooking for
Oh
everybody there in the Sunseed community when you
my
guys are
goodness.
when we're all celebrating this beautiful community of yours?
Mm, I feel like it's not my favorite dish, but I feel like soups are like a wonderful amalgam of just all the things in your kitchen, and it can make an
Mm,
abundance of food. So like
mm,
you trying to whip something up, your friends are coming over, you like, let me just throw some stuff in a pot. It always ends up
yes.
in like a pasta form or a soup form for me
Yes.
at least. So I feel like I love that. What is it? The stone soup.
Oh,
Like children's, like it would be like that.
yes.
So everyone would just go out in the garden and we would
Yes.
grab what feels good to our
Whatever's
soul.
there.
Yes.
Yes.
And we would just whip some up. We would all be in there like mixing the spices.
Ooh.
That feels really good. That feels really good. My mom makes like this delicious spicy cabbage soup.
Yes.
It might be a little bit of that. She also makes really good chili. So who knows?
Ooh,
That
I
feels right.
love it. I love soup. I think that it is like, I think that it's the food of the gods because everything stays in it, right? So you put everything in it and vitamins, everything stays in it. That's why people always say, oh, you need some soup when you feel sick. You need some soup because all the vitamins and everything stays in it. I love soup. And it is very communal. And I can see it in my mind's eye. Everybody coming to have some soup at the Sunseed community. And where would the Sunseed community be? Where
Oh,
are you?
I'm currently in Iowa and I thought
Okay.
about having it here. I'm not sure though. Like I really miss the mountains. I lived in
Okay.
Colorado for about 4 or 5 years. So
Okay.
I might be there. I want it to be accessible.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I picture lots of trees, lots of trees. There
Mm,
might be some
hmm.
mountains going on.
I love it. I love it. Well, that is so beautiful. And it has been such a pleasure to have this conversation with you, Goddess. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for agreeing to be on the show or for applying to be on the show. Because
Yeah.
because we got to make ourselves known. I don't know that I would have found you on my own, or maybe I would have found you
Same.
like years and years, right? But it's so good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
being here.
Yeah. This has been wonderful. It was an honor and congratulations on starting this. It's much needed. Much needed.
Thank you. I'm really excited about it. And I'm excited about Sunseed for real.
Did you enjoy that episode? If so, be sure to subscribe, download, rate, review, and share, because it's no fun if your friends don't know what you're talking about. Be sure to join us next time when we'll be talking to June Kim.